My fellow Americans, today I want to talk with you about our nation's military involvement in Somalia. A year ago, we all watched with horror as Somali children and their families lay dying by the tens of thousands, dying the slow, agonizing death of starvation. A starvation brought on not only by drought, but also by the anarchy that then prevailed in that country. This past weekend, we all reacted with anger and horror as an armed Somali gang desecrated the bodies of our American soldiers and displayed a captured American pilot. All of them soldiers who were taking part in an international effort to end the starvation of the Somali people themselves. These tragic events raise hard questions about our effort in Somalia. Why are we still there? What are we trying to accomplish? How did a humanitarian mission turn violent? And when will our people come home? These questions deserve straight answers. Let's start by remembering why our troops went into Somalia in the first place. We went because only the United States could help stop one of the great human tragedies of this time. 1/3 people had died of starvation and disease. Twice that many more were at risk of dying. Meanwhile, tons of relief supplies piled up in the capital of Mogadishu because a small number of Somalis stopped food from reaching their own countrymen. Our consciences said enough. In our nation's best tradition, we took action with bipartisan support. President Bush sent in 28,000 American troops as part of the United Nations humanitarian mission. Our troops created a secure environment so that food and medicine could get through. We saved close to 1 million lives. And throughout most of Somalia, everywhere but in Mogadishu, life began returning to normal. Crops are growing, markets are reopening, so are schools and hospitals. Nearly 1 million Somalis still depend completely on relief supplies, but at least the starvation is gone. And none of this would have happened without American leadership and America's troops. When our troops in Somalia came under fire this last weekend, we witnessed a dramatic example of the heroic ethic of our American military. When the first Black Hawk helicopter was down this weekend, the other American troops didn't retreat, although they could have. Some 90 of them formed a perimeter around the helicopter, and they held that ground under intensely heavy fire. They stayed with their comrades. That's the kind of soldiers they are. That's the kind of people we are. So let us finish the work we set out to do. Let us demonstrate to the world, as generations of Americans have done before us, that when Americans take on a challenge, they do the job right. Let me express my thanks and my gratitude and my profound sympathy to the families of the young Americans who were killed in Somalia. My message to you is, your country is grateful, and so is the rest of the world.
Hey DBY fans, welcome to a special edition of Doc's Boneyard. I'm Doc. This month at the Whiskey 901 Studios has been officially designated as Military May Month. That's right, Military May Month. And each week I'm recounting different military engagements in our recent history. Last week I did Operation Urgent Fury, which was the military operation on the island of Grenada. This week, we're going to shed the spotlight on the Battle of Mogadishu, Somalia. October 3rd, 2023 will officially be the 30th anniversary of the Battle of Mogadishu, Somalia. And to some, it may just be a page in the history book, or maybe not even a whole page, maybe a paragraph or a few sentences. But it was a pretty significant episode in our military's history. And we're going to talk about that for a little bit. Now, the soundbite I chose to start this episode off with was the press conference given by then President Clinton describing our involvement and subsequently what happened. Now, I don't know about you, but on October 3rd, 1993, I had no idea what the hell Mogadishu and specifically where the hell Somalia was. There were little bits and pieces in the world press about the historic famine that reached monumental levels. And as a result of that, President George Herbert Walker Bush felt compelled by international pressure to intervene on the behalf of the Somali people to end the famine. So we did what we do. We intervened. We sent Marines in and restored the food supply shipments and, basically took care of the famine problem after a short time. It is funny. I do remember U.S. Navy SEALs making a beach landing. And that was televised. That was broadcast. I don't know if it was live, but, they showed footage of it later. And SEALs were like, yo, what the fuck, man? We operate in the shadows, This is out of our scope of practice. Anyway, I kind of got off on a little tangent there. Had a squirrel moment. Our little fuckers are running rampant here in the studio. Well, after a while, the conditions stabilized. We were able to pull our Marines out. United Nations forces took over, and things kind of went all to hell in a handbasket right after that. UN peacekeepers, Pakistanis got ambushed. They were subsequently killed with command-detonated mines. And we had gotten ourselves into the middle of a civil war between warring factions and warring clans in Somalia. So the crux of all this was Mohammed Farah Aidid's Habagitar clan was the supposed bad guys in all this who triggered the ambush and killed the Pakistani forces. So a plan was devised to go get them. So Task Force Ranger was initiated. Elements of the 75th Ranger Regiment, Delta Force, U.S. Navy SEALs, U.S. Air Force Pararescue with CSAR were all part of that. Also, the 10th Mountain was also there, as well as U.S. Army Amphibious Forces. So yeah, we had quite a armada, so to speak. Now, like I said, I had no idea that Somalia was even on our radar until the CNN reports of a Black Hawk crash, American servicemen being dragged through the streets of Mogadishu, dead obviously, and that kind of raised curiosity, what the hell was going on, why were we there, and what the deal was. Mark Bowden, who was a staff reporter with the Philadelphia Inquirer, asked that same question. He wanted to know, why we were watching footage of Somalis dragging military personnel through the streets of Mogadishu. Why were we there? What the fuck was going on? So Mark did the research. Mark went down there. Mark wrote one hell of a good book called Black Hawk Down, which Ridley Scott eventually made into the blockbuster movie. But the movie didn't tell the whole story, unfortunately. There were lots of bits and pieces of the movie that, for, I guess, time's sake, just couldn't be put in the film, and, whatever. An interesting little factoid that I researched on the internet, when Super 6 won, piloted by Cliff Walcott, and CW3 Donovan Briley was shot down by an RPG, the responding aircraft, an MH6 Star 4-1 piloted by Carl Meyer and Keith Jones, they were actually in the movie. They were the aircraft that landed, but those two pilots were actually in that movie and actually performed that rescue that allowed Dan Bush to make it out. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And also in the making of Black Hawk Down, Ridley Scott persuaded the 75th Ranger Regiment to loan some of the troops that actually were in the battle themselves, which I thought was amazing. Anyway, that was another squirrel moment. Like I said, these little fuckers are running rampant in the Whiskey 901 studios today. But back to the task at hand. In doing some of the research for this podcast, I came across a really awesome story. Jeff Struker, in his own words, talks about going back to Mogadishu, Somalia, with fellow veteran Kenny Thomas, as a matter of fact. And I included that in this podcast. So sit back and listen to Jeff and Kenny, in their own words, tell you about their experiences on the ground in Mogadishu, Somalia.
Say again.
I drove these roads 20 years ago.
You?
Yes.
Yeah. 1993.
1993, yes.
There is a great deal of killing, a whole lot of violence in the movie Black Hawk Down. But to be honest with you, it is a fraction of what really happened in Somalia.
If you look at all the bullet holes around here, most of these are from us.
Life and death became a lot less significant for me in Mogadishu. I don't know if that's a piece of me that's still over there. I don't know if that's something I left there. I don't know if that's just who I am now. I don't know the answer to that.
It was my job to lead the Humvees on all of the missions that Task Force Ranger did in Somalia. For the first 30 minutes, man, this thing went down like clockwork, except for one of the Rangers who was flying in on the Black Hawks. Todd Blackburn, when he left the Black Hawk to slide down the rope, he missed the rope and he fell somewhere between 70 and 90 feet from the helicopter. So as soon as I got to the target building, I was already getting a call to take Todd Blackburn back to the base and drop him off. And when I turned the corner, I got hit with the most intense enemy gunfire I've ever experienced in my life. In the course of one or two city blocks, Dominic Pillar was killed behind me and most of the vehicles were shot to pieces. For the first time, I started to panic, and everybody around me started to panic, and I was thinking, I know I'm going to die. When I finally made it back to the airfield, I was surprised that any of us survived. In fact, I took my helmet off and I threw it. I was so angry at what I just went through. Threw it across the blacktop. And that's almost the exact moment that my platoon leader said, Jeff, Mike Durant's helicopters crashed in the city and we don't have anybody else who can go back out there. I need you to get your men, get back on the Humvees, and go back out to the Durant crash site and see if anybody's alive there. I started to clean the blood and the brain matter off of the sides of this Humvee, getting ready to go back out into the city streets, and I was listening over the radio as this operation was spinning out of control and people's voices were getting more and more terrified. I started thinking about my family. I started thinking, God, I'm going to die in the next few minutes. Everything inside of me was thinking, don't go back out there. So at that point, I just kept doing what I was doing, and I started praying, God, I'm in big trouble now, and I know I'm going to die, and I need your help. Whatever you want to happen to me tonight, God, I'm putting my life and my future in your hands. It was in an instant, as soon as I said that, I was still totally convinced that I was going to die. But from that moment, the rest of the night, I didn't fear death at all. I think that is the only thing that gave me the courage to get on Humvees and drive back out in the city streets repeatedly.
What nobody has done at this point from Task Force Ranger who was in Somalia, nobody's gone back there. A good friend of mine, Kenny Thomas, who is in Somalia with me, called me out of the blue and said, Jeff, are you interested in going to Somalia? And I was the one telling Kenny, do you realize how dangerous Somalia and specifically how dangerous Mogadishu is? And he said, look, man, I'm willing to go if you're willing to go. I don't feel much emotional difference today than I did flying into Mogadishu 20 years ago. It doesn't feel like it's been that long. I haven't specifically thought of what it's going to be like, for me personally. emotionally or psychologically going back over there? Probably haven't thought about it on purpose.
The security supervisor here in Mogadishu for SKA. The situation in Mogadishu is, I can say, it's not any better. There's a lot more activity still happening. IEDs, roadside, grenade attack, drive-by shooting is still happening. I will not advise that we go into Makara area.
Hey, I'll see you on the other side, man.
Hey Jeff, you recognize anything yet?
All right, so anything on your right should be the Wolcott crash site, and right up here where those trees are to your left should be the Durant crash site. I was parked right here. In fact, I can still recognize some of those buildings that I spent the whole night parked in front of.
So this is how you came in to get us, right?
That's right. I think if you bang a right up here by this large 5-story building, you're going to get real close to the original Target building.
So just tell the driver we're going to go right.
All right, we got it.
Taking a right.
Roger. Hey, Kenny, you know that we're in the Makara market right now, right?
Acutely.
This is what the roads look like with people, except for the people all have guns. You're in the area of town that everybody said don't go into right now. Because it's very dangerous.
Hey Jeff, let's just tell the team we're going to find our way out of here pretty quick.
Yeah, sounds good. Hey, will you call them and tell them to go north to whatever, and then let's go back down to the list. No, don't turn back. Tell them to go north, hit 21 October, and go down via there. It's okay, keep going, keep going. You're good. It is? That's your house? Yeah. We did a lot of shooting back here 20 years ago by your house. Is this Hobbledig? Yeah, okay. We got into a big firefight right here, man. I drove down a narrow alleyway next to the Target building, and then I made a right turn onto that road. And when I made a right turn onto that road, that's where I got hit with about a couple of 100 to 1,000 enemy fighters within a few city blocks. That's where Dominic Pilla was killed. That's where the majority of the initial firefight that I experienced was there. And to this day, it's still the most intense firefight I've ever been in. What I remember thinking distinctly when we were driving back into the city the second and third time is, okay, I know I'm going to die, but I know where I'm going to spend my eternity. Now I just need to do everything necessary to make sure that my men don't die. I can't believe I survived that. Good gracious. There's no real explanation why I'm standing here right now. Today, driving back through the city streets, I think that's as close as I've come to the feelings of Somalia 20 years ago in Black Hawk Down. And today really, really drove this home for me. When this firefight was over with, a lot of guys were coming up to my little cot saying, "You've got something that I don't have. What is it? You were able to do something that I wasn't able to do. I could hear it in your voice over the radio. What is it?" I was very calm. I had made peace with God. I was ready to die in the next few moments. And it influenced the way that I fought. And seeing that spot today, where I washed the blood on the back of the Humvees and where God gave me the sense of peace, has reminded me that death really became less significant to me in Somalia. And I wonder if life and death here on earth became less significant because eternity became so much more real to me in Somalia.
Folks, I gotta tell you, I got chills up and down my spine watching Jeff and Kenny in their journey going back to the battlefield in Somalia. It kind of made me, reflect on my own experiences, but, I'm not going to say much about that, but, yeah, it was, this episode is tough for me because, for one, I am a combat veteran. The movie had a profound effect on me when I saw it, and it was one of anger at how a humanitarian mission could go so wrong that we end up in a firefight and lose so many good people. But, then again, that's a topic for another discussion and another podcast. The fact is that there are as many stories of the battle that happened that day, and the movie was actually based on their 7th mission, not a total culmination of all the missions. But each individual has his own stories and own recollections and own memories from that day. And I believe it's important that we take time to hear these stories, to know what these guys went through, to know that they did their job above and beyond valiant, that these guys are true heroes in every sense of the word, silent, professional, but heroes just the same. So during the Battle of Mogadishu, 3rd to 4th October 1993, we lost the following personnel. Sergeant First Class Randall Shugart was awarded the Medal of Honor. Master Sergeant Gary Gordon, Medal of Honor. Chief Warrant Officer Cliff Walcott, Distinguished Flying Cross, Silver Star, Air Medal with Valor. CWO Donovan Briley, Distinguished Service Cross, Bronze Star, Air Medal with Valor. Staff Sergeant William Bill Cleveland, Silver Star, Bronze Star, Air Medal with Valor Device. Staff Sergeant Tommy Field, Silver Star, Bronze Star, and Air Medal with Valor Device. CWO Ray Frank, Silver Star, Air Medal with Valor Device. Staff Sergeant Dan Bush, Silver Star. Sergeant Cornell Houston, Bronze Star with Valor Device. Specialist James Cavaco, Bronze Star with Valor Device. Corporal Jamie Smith, Bronze Star with Valor Device. Sergeant Dominic Pilla, Bronze Star with Valor Device. PFC Richard Kowaleski, Bronze Star with Valor Device. Sergeant Lorenzo Ruiz, Bronze Star with Valor Device. Sergeant First Class Earl Fillmore. Private First Class James Martin. Master Sergeant Tim Grizz Martin. From all of us at the Whiskey 901 Studios, a slow hand salute. May your sacrifice never be forgotten. I'm going to close out this episode with the Ranger motto, Sua Sponte, of their own accord. And a little love and shout out to the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, November, Sierra, Delta, Quebec. Night Stalkers don't quit. Until next time, folks, If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, hey, drop me a line at theboneyard2021@yahoo.com. That's theboneyard2021@yahoo.com. I look forward to seeing you next week. God bless.